Hello, and welcome to another episode of Despite the Challenges, a show where we showcase people who, despite their impeding circumstances and life challenges, not only they turn around their own lives, but they go out in the community and do amazing things. Today, my guest is Tamu Lane. Tamu has an interesting story. She is an author. She has actually an interesting and inspiring story. In her own words, as an African American woman, she has struggled for years with understanding who she was as a woman and then as a Black woman. And in coming in terms to understanding her authentic self, allowed her to give to other women and men so that they can begin to heal from inside out. So Tamu is the author of Finally Free. She's currently filming a documentary, and let's hear more from Tamu herself. Tamu, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Very
Nice
welcome. So tell us about Tamu a little bit.
Well, that's interesting. This book, Finally Free, is basically my journey through life and growing up and, as you read, understanding who I am as a woman and as a Black woman. Being sexually assaulted from the age of 8 to 15 and being in a domestic violence relationship starting at the age of 20 to 25 shaped me tremendously.
I'm sure.
You know, it shaped who I am and how I decided to go through the rest of life.
So a childhood assault isn't a traumatic experience for the rest of life for most of people. And I know it's a sensitive subject. And I admire you being very open to talk about it. So tell us a little bit how it has really helped you to help others.
I didn't know it then. You know, you don't know what's going to happen at that time or how your life is going to form. But when I turned, I would say about 29, 30 years old, I kept trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life? Because I found myself at a job that I really didn't like, but I had to pay bills because I had a child by the time I was 29 years old. And I found myself actually at 26 years old in an eating disorder clinic. Because I didn't realize I ended up having an eating disorder when I was a child, but I didn't know it and no one recognized it. But I realized it as I got into my early 20s. Found myself in a clinic at 26, 27. So then I began to get therapy, individual therapy, group therapy, all kind of therapy you can think of. And it began to help me because I didn't realize why I responded to life in the way that I did. Not really connecting to being abused as a child, you know, not really connecting those different things. So as I went through therapy, I began to connect with myself and started to understand myself. And I said, you know what, I want to do something different. You know, I went to college at 17, but 3 years later I got kicked out because I used negative coping skills. I would drink a lot. I used drugs. You know, I used that stuff to cope with life. So as I was clean at 27 and in therapy, it hit that I think I want to do something more. You know, and that's when it finally clicked that I wanted to help others. But then I wasn't sure how.
Yes.
You know, and going back to school eventually.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes. And that gives you some empowerment when you make that promise to help others. Actually, you're doing bigger help to yourself in that promise.
Oh, yes. Yes, I think I helped me more, you know, in trying to figure out how to help someone else.
Yes.
But I was healing in turn in that process.
That comes later on.
Yeah.
That comes later on. So, and you did your master's.
Yes.
In psychology.
I finally went back to school. I started back, I would say I was about 30. I decided to say, okay, what's the easiest way I can at least start the process? So I went back to community college and I said, what's the easiest way I can get my associates? So they showed me liberal arts. I said, good, let's get it done. And then I kept going. Got my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I kept going. Got my counseling, my master's in counseling psychology. And I actually went for my PhD. I have everything but the dissertation. I said, I'll figure that out another day. But I just wanted to keep going. I think I had to prove something to myself.
Yes.
That I wasn't stupid, that I wasn't all those things that the abuser told me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I had to prove something to myself in the process of getting getting to the place where I wanted to help others, you know, and hopefully, you know, at that time wanting to become a therapist, which I eventually had happen.
Okay. So you became therapist.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And
yes.
tell us your journey a little bit about having your own experiences and coming into therapy and healing others.
It's been amazing. You know, sometimes I sit back in disbelief, as if to say, wow, I never knew that my life would go 360 to where as though the people that I was helping and serving have been through the same exact things, you know, have been sexually abused, have been in a domestic violence relationship, have struggled with substance abuse, struggle with eating disorders, and I'm being able to serve and help the same people. It blows my mind.
Yes, I agree with you. It's bringing the same personal experiences into your life again, and here you are in a very different role.
I'm on the other side. Right?
On the other side,
right?
Yes. So you can empathize with people. You can really relate to them, what they're going through, and I'm sure from where you are, you're able to see what they're not seeing for themselves.
Correct. You know, but still, even though I can see it, still being careful not to step in, because I've been there once and I can't judge them or put my judgments on them. So I got to be careful of how I step in, because even though I see it, I have to let them in some ways go through that process themselves.
And that makes you a great therapist then.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have a tendency to want to tell folks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I've learned.
It's a human instinct.
It is.
You know, when you feel in a position of power or position of an authority that you want to guide them, you want to help them. Hey, I've gone through it. Hear me. But
and this is how you do it.
Yes, it doesn't go that way.
No.
I learned, like you, we have learned our lessons, and that we are ready when we are ready. And I can look back and so many times in my life, my own life incidents, and I find that to be so true. If somebody did tell me, I had my own plan, how I wanted to do things. So, and I'm sure, are you in touch with any of these people, that how they have turned around their lives, how they recovered? What kind of role you play with them now?
It's interesting though. Every once in a while, you know, because you don't want to, you can't call and reach out to folks. You know, you want to be careful with that. But every once in a while, I'll see someone somewhere, or I'll get a call and say, "Oh my God, Tamu, you just don't know what you've done for me, or how you've helped me." Or I remember when my book first, this is second edition, I remember when the first book came out, and did a lot of different book signings and things of that nature, and I was at one particular bookstore, and there was this lady that was at one of the very first book signings, and she said, "Oh my God, I've been trying to look for you, I've been looking for you for so long," and she brought a lot of books that day. She brought a lot of books, she said, because I have to give them out, but she also wrote me this letter that I actually keep inside of my Bible. And it's been there for years. I think the oil and stuff kind of ran out some of the ink. But she wrote me this letter of how, because through my story and through helping her through the process, she has been able now, well, during that time in her 50s, to finally, for the first time, tell her story.
Tell her story. Isn't that?
So that was just, whoa, for me.
Yes, yes. So we all, especially people who have gone through traumatic or some sort of adverse experiences in life. When you're going through it, you're going through it. At that time, you don't have. It's always in hindsight. You look back and you reflect on it. And what stands out when you wrote this book? I'm sure there would be some outstanding stories that you like to tell. Can you recall anything that you would like to tell audience?
In regards to what's in the book?
Yes.
Oh, geez, so much. I would say one of the most defining moments that occurred was when I was with my daughter's father, who was the one who abused me, physically, verbally, emotionally, financially, the whole gamut spectrum. And it was one particular day that it finally clicked for me. We were together 5.5 years. And one day in particular, my daughter wasn't there. We were just in the apartment. We were living together. And he cooked. He loved to cook, and he cooked one of my favorite meals that day. And I know he didn't cook it for me; he just loved it too. So it was curry chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in there and it's cooking. So he calls me. I'm in the living room. He calls me inside and he says, "Dinner's done," inside the kitchen. So I'm like, okay. So I get up from the living room, and there's two entrances to the kitchen. So I go around this side and I go in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, he punches me straight in the face.
Mm.
And I go back. There was like a freezer there. So I go back because it totally took me off guard. I'm thinking, okay, I'm about to come get something to eat. But just to normalize it, how it was so normal for me, he punches me in the face. He laughs. He goes out of the kitchen. I got myself together. I go to the cabinet. I get a plate, and I still fix my plate of food.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this plate of food in my hand after being punched in the eye. I go in the living room, and I sit on the edge of the couch. Now, I remember crying, and I'm beginning to eat.
Mm-hmm.
He walked back to the bedroom at that time. So then I hear him come storming out of the bedroom. "You're not going to eat my food." And he takes the plate. He opens up the balcony. We're about on the third floor, and he throws it off of the balcony. It's a glass plate. So I'm nervous that he's going to hit someone or hit a car. So he throws it off the balcony. And then he comes back in. He throws out a switchblade and a knife, and he puts it up against my neck. And he started pressing real hard. And he said, "I could kill you and no one would ever know." And he presses up against, and he just kept pressing. And I stopped breathing like I held because he was pressing so hard. I felt like if I would breathe, he would cut my neck. That's how hard he was pressing his knife up against my throat. So then he closes the knife after a while, and he walks away and starts laughing. And he goes back into the bedroom. And it was at that moment that I realized it was time to go. Now, mind you, there was so many other things of him raping me and so many other things that happened. But it wasn't until that moment that it finally clicked that if I don't get out of here, this man is going to kill me.
Yes.
And it took me almost 6 months. It was like 5-6 months after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for me, I was trying to figure out my plan.
Okay.
You know, that was my
Yes.
way because I had a baby girl. That was his child. I didn't want him trying to get her. So it was like that was my process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a defining moment for me that, it was time.
I want to ask you, did he sense that his time was up?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
No, because when I finally left, he was in total shock.
Okay.
Like the day that I finally left, and he knew it. He was there. My daughter, once again, wasn't there because she would spend some weekends with his mom or weekends with my mom, which was great. I was, even though she did see the abuse at times, but she was not there on the weekends a lot. So this one particular weekend when it was time for me to go, I knew it in me. I said, "I'm leaving." And all I had on a pair of shorts, a T-shirt, and I grabbed my bag. I said, "I'm leaving." I called my mom. I always had a key to my mom's house, but she always would lock her screen door, which I didn't have a key for. So I called her. I said, "Mom, can you just take the lock off the screen door?" And it's about 12 o'clock midnight. She said, "Do you need me to come get you from somewhere?" I said, "No, Mom, I'll be there soon." So he says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going out." I said, I'm going out. He was like, "If you go out those doors, don't ever come back." I know he was trying to call my bluff. Yes. I said, and it was like a light bulb. I said, "Huh, really?" He was like, "Yeah, don't," but he's using profanity and, understand that. I said, "Okay." I said, "Bye." And I never went back. I went to my mom's house. And I know he let me go so easy because he really did not think it was going to happen. I know it for a fact.
Okay.
I know for a fact he was trying to call my bluff and see what would happen. And when I got to my mom's house the next day, he kept calling me. "Where are you? You need to come home." I said, "I'm done."
Good for you.
And that was it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there is a defining moment where a lot of people, it happens for a lot of people that enough is enough. And they cannot cope with it, and they know they should have done it. But until that moment arrives, you have to be ready for it. And of course, you have to make sure if the kids are involved, so their safety is important. Everyone's safety is important. So let's talk about a little bit about your work, documentary you're doing.
So I'm doing a documentary. It's called Silent No More. And that's based around mental illness and suicide, which I'm so excited about because I have 2 children. My son has borderline personality disorder. My daughter is clinically depressed. So I've watched them try to take their life, especially my son multiple times. And it's just something to my heart. And then I'm seeing all of these cases of suicide that are extreme that keep happening around the world. So I felt like we needed to have that conversation.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
what the documentary itself is about, and why I'm so passionate of making that happen.
I'm sure. And it is epidemic
Yes.
now. And children not having a good family. I mean, not all of them. Some do end up in a situation, foster care or other, that they don't have that loving childhood. Depression and substance abuse is becoming common.
But I'm even seeing it more, even with children in homes that are, you would think were great. Whatever reason, it's just like mental illness, period, is affecting children. It's affecting our world to the extreme.
Yes.
You know?
I do not know why such a uptick in mental illness or health issues, mental health issues among children, but I agree that I see the rates are alarming.
Yeah.
Rates are alarming. And with this work, and you should still continue your work as a therapist?
I actually, it's interesting because I haven't done therapy in a very long time, being at Advanced Art, one of their directors. Now I'm only there part-time, and then I have my own training consultant company. So I'm very busy, but I actually just, my boss called me a few days ago and asked me to see someone. So I'm like, okay, sure. You know, it's just kind of getting back in there. I'm like, sure, not a problem. So, yeah.
Okay. So, your company, TK
Yes.
LLC.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So you work on the racial equity.
Yes, I do a lot of anti-oppression work.
Healing power of forgiveness. Tell us a little bit about that. Oppression and healing powers, and whatever you do that really brings people to talk.
Yeah. I love to teach, you know, so one of the biggest trainings I do is, like I said, around the healing power of forgiveness. And every time people come out of that, they feel lighter, if that's the best way I can say, because they've been able to be in a space of understanding what forgiveness really is, whether we're talking about, no matter what we're talking about, we talk about any kind of trauma, it's just letting that thing go for themselves. So that's a big one, and doing a lot of anti-oppression work is so necessary.
Yes.
In today's time.
Just out of curiosity, when you talk about traumatic experience, it could be somebody had a major accident and their life changed. They became, disabled per se, and they're angry. Right? So is that something that you work with as well?
Yes.
All right?
Yes, just trauma.
Any type of trauma.
Trauma as a whole.
Right. And
because we need to be able to move past that. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes. So looking back, when you were 20, 25, did you ever imagine what you would become?
No. I was just trying to get out of there.
Yes.
You know, I was trying to get out of that apartment.
So for younger people, that they are trying to still figure out their life, so what would you say to them?
Be patient with yourself. Be steady with yourself. Take each moment as it is. You know, don't look at yourself and say, oh my God, I should be here. Because I didn't go back to school, like I said, until I was 30 years old. You know, so there's no particular age where you have to go to college, or, you know, you can start at a later time where you can do something different. But one of the biggest things I would say, be patient with yourself. And take your steps as they come.
As they come.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're 25 and life is over and I'm going to be this particular way in this situation because life didn't kind of turn out the way that I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll conquer the world.
Correct. You know, the world says 17, you graduate from high school, you go to college, you get white people get fenced, you get married. It didn't happen. It doesn't work that way for everyone.
So life doesn't happen in same way that we anticipate.
Yeah.
But it does happen, right?
Correct.
So it is how we make out what happens to us.
Yep.
So about your documentary, I want to come back to that, the mental illness. So what do you find that with your contribution and with your life experiences, how best people in your situation can deliver this message to either parents or even people who are going through mental illnesses.
One of the biggest ways, one of the things I've been doing right now, I've been doing a lot of free workshops in our area that's called What You Should Know Around Mental Illness and Suicide.
Okay.
And I'm doing it, and I'm doing it for free because I'm trying to get the communities aware.
Okay.
So they know what kind of things to look for. It doesn't mean you're always going to catch it. It doesn't mean, okay, I have all this information, I'm going to get it. But at least begins to help them get educated.
Okay.
So that's one of the biggest things that I'm doing to help folks get educated around those topics.
Do you get people turn out?
I do.
And okay,
I
so
do.
that's a good thing, that there's an openness for them to talk about
I'd like
it.
to get a lot more.
And hear about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what else? What else would you like to tell our audiences? Because you have an interesting journey, and I could tell just by someone writing a book, a whole lot goes into writing process, right?
It does.
I'm talking about the story.
Oh, yeah.
Not the publishing, just the story part of
Yeah.
it. You have to overcome a whole lot of your own challenges. That should this go into the book or should that go into the book? Anything stands out?
Actually, when it came to talking about the sexual abuse, I stopped writing for a year.
You stopped.
I stopped.
Okay.
Because talking about the domestic violence was easy. I don't know why, but it was easy. Talking about the eating disorder and the substance abuse was easy. When it hit me that I had to go back to that 8-year-old in a closet the very first time, I got very fearful and I stopped for just about a whole year. And people asked me, where's some people that knew I was writing, it was very few. It's like, no, it's okay. And I would kind of blow them off.
Okay.
Because in my mind, I was done with the book. Because I didn't want to confront having to go back and remember all of these times that I was raped over and over by family members. I didn't want to confront it. So that was the hardest piece to get together for me, to begin to say, okay, it's time to sit down and go through this process.
So sexual abuse, adolescence in a childhood, the rates are alarming around the world.
Yeah.
So we cannot say enough. We cannot say enough. It's a big problem. But when we look at our local communities, or especially come to know someone who opened up about their traumatic experiences of childhood, or we become aware of. So there are a lot of laws. There's a lot of policies have changed. Laws have changed. Do you address them with people?
I don't necessarily some of the laws I do. I don't go through a whole lot because I don't want folks to get so caught up. But in regards to them reporting, I go through that piece, because I want them to have an opportunity, if they still fall in with that range, to do so if they feel like it's necessary for them.
I see.
But when a lot of folks they'll find that a lot of survivors still don't report or still don't say anything. And I said, just like myself, no one still doesn't know who they were. And I said, it's for a reason, because it will become all about them. It will become all about them as far as family getting revenge or other harmful things. I said, I just put it in God's hands, and I've forgiven and I've moved on. And a lot of other survivors feel that way.
I think you touch upon a very important point. And when a childhood sexual abuse or assault happens, is usually by the known people.
Yes.
It's by the known people, right?
Yes.
And there is a
95%.
lot of shame. 95. Hey, that's very high number. Yes, it is high. But in those cases, it's pretty difficult situation. A family member sexually assaulting brothers, sisters, or some of their very own. And how do you make a decision of what to say, what not to say?
Correct.
Right? So it really destroys relationships.
It does.
And it destroys the person who has gone through it.
It does.
Right? What would you say, as you do this work, and I'm involved in a lot of the domestic violence awareness myself, there's so much crossover. Domestic violence, as
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, is a little bit easier to talk about for people than sexual assault. But domestic violence has a bigger taboo as well,
It does.
right?
It does.
People don't want to talk about
Nope.
it. They do not want to associate themselves that someone loved one violates that sanctity of that relation, right? But it does happen. It does happen too much. So going forward, with your documentaries complete and all that, do you have any other plans that you anticipate that you would like to do it just for?
I don't know,
Because you found yourself now.
I know, and I got so much. I'm trying to figure all this out. But what I do know is, if nothing else, I just want to continue to educate. I just want to continue to educate folks so they understand domestic violence, they understand childhood sexual abuse and sexual violence, sexual assault, all the different forms. Because look at our society today and what's happening. There's a case coming out every single day about someone who has been assaulted.
Yes.
You know, and I hear all these different, I hear positive views, I hear a lot of negative views, and I get, of course, angry at the negative views because I'm like, folks just don't understand. You know, they say, well, why did she wait so long? There's a reason why she waited so long.
Yes.
You know, and us in society, we don't get that. We want her to be able to tell when it happens to tell. It doesn't happen that way.
It doesn't happen that way. And
it just doesn't.
Something that really bothers me is that sometimes you hear that, was there any witness? Did you tell anybody? No. If there was any witness, it wouldn't happen. So that's kind of really silly.
Yeah.
So minimize the trauma of the person who has gone through. It takes them so much effort to even speak, like you said, sometimes many years, right? So this is not an easy area to deal with, but I am so pleased to see that you have taken your traumatic experience to turn them into something that you can contribute to the community and be able to give them healing.
Yeah, I don't want to take my life as if it was just something horrific that happened. No, there was purpose, there was meaning behind it. I was supposed to do something with it, and that's what I'm doing. I feel like that's my job.
Yes.
You know, I feel like that's my job, because other folks need to be able to be healed or be educated so that they can whether help a child or help someone they know, or that survivor can move forward.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. I need to remember that.
Yeah.
That each person has their own way of expressing themselves and be okay with that.
Yep. Right? Don't let anyone shut you down or tell you that, well, that's stupid or you shouldn't. No, it's not. It's not. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things I try to get over to young folks.
But thank you so much, Tamu, for being here.
Thank you.
It was so pleasant to see that the work you're doing and making a difference, and keep up that good work. And hopefully we'll see you again when your documentary is complete. And for our audience, this was another episode of Despite the Challenges, and I'm host Ritu Chopra. Until next time.